Spain vs Netherlands, 2010 World Cup final. In this game, the stakes were huge. Both sides chasing their first ever World Cup trophy, but from the opening whistle, it was clear the Netherlands weren't interested in playing pretty football. They came to kick, literally. Nigel de Jong's infamous chest-high kung fu kick into Xabi Alonso's ribs right in front of referee Howard Webb somehow only earned him a yellow card. That tackle alone was enough for memes and outrage worldwide, and that was just one foul in a match that felt more like an endless cycle of body checks than football. The Dutch racked up 28 fouls by the end, Spain 19. Webb handed out 14 yellow cards, a record for a World Cup final, and eventually sent off John Heitinga late in extra time. Tension spilled over constantly, Van Bommel hacking down Iniesta, Robben and Puyol clashing repeatedly, and both benches screaming at every decision. Despite the chaos, Spain clung on and eventually got the goal they needed, Andres Iniesta finishing in the 116th minute. But by then, the match felt almost secondary to the carnage that unfolded. Argentina vs Netherlands, 2022 World Cup quarterfinal. These were two teams with a semi-final spot on the line, and by the time the match ended, it felt less like a football match and more like a telenovela meets Fight Club. Argentina took a 2-0 lead and looked to have it wrapped up, but no, this match was just getting started. From the first whistle, you could feel the heat. Every foul had an extra edge, every shove seemed personal. And referee Antonio Mateo Lahoz, he looked like he was refereeing with a blindfold on. No control, all chaos. Then came the match's signature moment. Leandro Paredes clattered Nathan Ake near the sideline, grabbed the ball, and absolutely rocketed it straight into the Dutch bench, full WWE villain energy. The entire Netherlands squad exploded off the bench like they'd been waiting all day for this. Players sprinted in, shoving, shouting. It looked more like a Royal Rumble than a World Cup quarterfinal. The card count? Utter madness. 17 yellow cards, a new World Cup record, plus a red card after it all ended. Even players sitting comfortably on the bench somehow picked up bookings. Wout Weghorst dragged the Dutch level with a dramatic 101st minute equalizer, sending the game to penalties, but Argentina held their nerve in the shootout, winning 4-3. Real Madrid vs Barcelona, 2011 Spanish Super Cup. El Clasico doesn't need much help being intense, but August 2011, that rivalry reached peak chaos. The match itself had a bit of everything: beautiful goals, elite players, wild tackles, and then it totally exploded. Things boiled over when Marcelo lunged in on Cesc Fabregas with a reckless two-footer right near the touchline, and that was the spark everyone was waiting for. Suddenly, players from both teams piled in, shoves everywhere, coaches screaming, even the benches emptied. But then Jose Mourinho took things from standard brawl to you can't be serious territory. While the melee raged, Mourinho casually walked up behind Barcelona assistant Tito Vilanova and poked him in the eye. No disguise, no hesitation, straight up eye poke on live TV. Tito's reaction, swatting Mourinho away like he'd just been hit by an annoying fly. The match finished 3-2 to Barcelona, 5-4 on aggregate, but hardly anyone remembered the scoreline. Every post-match highlight focused on the mayhem, the confrontations, and that infamous eye jab. Barcelona vs Atlético Madrid, 2014 Champions League quarterfinal. On paper, this seemed like Messi versus Simeone's gritty Atlético. In reality, this was less a football match and more like a scrappy street fight played in front of 90,000 people. From the start, Atlético's game plan was crystal clear: disrupt, foul, tackle, repeat. Koke, Thiago, Diego Costa all went in hard and early. Every time Barcelona tried to build momentum, bam, an Atletico body flying into a challenge stopped it dead. Diego Simeone, coaching from the sideline in full black suit, prowled his technical area like he was ready to sub himself on for a tackle at any second. The fouls stacked up, 26 in total for Atletico, and the referee seemed happy to let them play. Barcelona's stars, used to tiki-taka comfort zones, looked rattled. Neymar and Messi took turns getting clattered, and Diego Costa left blood on the pitch after a clash with Jordi Alba. The tension never let up. Even on the sidelines, things boiled, Simeone shouting instructions and insults with equal intensity, Barca's bench raging at every foul. The match ended 1-1 thanks to a stunning Diego wonder goal, but the result felt secondary. Atletico had shown everyone exactly how they planned to handle Barca's artistry, with brute force and relentless fouling, and it worked. Chile vs Italy, Battle of Santiago. Even before a ball was kicked, this match was already dripping with bad blood. Italian journalists had taken aim at Chile before the tournament, describing Santiago as filthy and poverty-stricken. And trust me, Chilean fans were ready to make their feelings known. Once the whistle blew, total mayhem. 12 minutes in, Chile's Leonel Sanchez greeted Italy's Mario David with a straight punch to the face. Referee Ken Aston barely flinched. Then David took revenge with a wild kick to Sanchez's head. Again, Aston just waved play on like it was a friendly. The police? Yeah, they got involved too. Not just once, but twice, charging onto the field to physically separate the players as if they were breaking up a street fight. And that was only the beginning. Sanchez later socked another Italian square in the jaw and somehow stayed on the pitch. Tackles turned into body slams, fouls into full-on brawls, and the referee's whistle felt more like a polite suggestion than actual authority. Chile eventually won 2-0, but the result almost felt irrelevant. This match became infamous around the world, a prime example of what happens when a World Cup fixture completely loses the plot. Portugal versus Netherlands, Battle of Nuremberg. But before we get into it, hit that like button and subscribe so that the video can be pushed to more people. Thanks. Now, moving on. The foul started early, but it quickly became clear that this wasn't going to be just another heated World Cup match. Nuremberg transformed into a referee's nightmare as Portugal and the Netherlands stopped bothering with football and started going card for card, foul for foul, all-out chaos from start to finish. Valentin Ivanov, the man with the whistle, was put to work early. The tackles were brutal, the tempers hot, and within minutes the fouls were flying. Khalid Boularus set the tone, absolutely clattering Cristiano Ronaldo with a knee-high scythe that had Ronaldo limping off in tears. That could have calmed things down, but no, it opened the floodgates. By halftime, the yellow cards were stacking up like a deck of Uno. Second half, chaos fully unlocked. Deco delaying a free kick and getting booked. Figo headbutting Van Bommel and somehow staying on. Costinha sent off for 2 yellows. Boularus finally walking for a second yellow. Deco again in the spotlight, second yellow, gone. It felt like Ivanov was speedrunning referee school in real time. By the end, 16 yellows and 4 reds, a record that still stands. Portugal eked out a 1-0 win, but the highlight reel was pure carnage. Chelsea versus Tottenham, 2016. Diego Costa didn't even need to touch the ball to get under Tottenham's skin that night. Just a grin and a few choice words had them seeing red before kickoff. Tottenham were desperate. The title race was slipping and all that stood in their way. A Chelsea side with nothing to play for except the joy of ruining Spurs' season. And wow, did they embrace that role. From the first whistle, it felt more like a neighborhood feud than a football match. Danny Rose crunched into Willian early. Eric Dyer hacked down Hazard like he was clearing a tree. Every tackle came with an extra shove, a glare, or a sneaky stamp. And Diego Costa, stirring the pot, smiling, taunting, his masterpiece in chaos. It escalated fast. Moussa Dembélé casually gouged Diego Costa's eye. Lamela accidentally stepped on Fabregas's hand. The ref handed out 9 yellows, but honestly, a few straight reds wouldn't have gone amiss. Mauricio Pochettino even charged onto the pitch to try and calm things. Didn't work. Tottenham blew their 2-0 lead as Chelsea dragged them into the mud. Hazard's equaliser sealed it at 2-2, officially handing Leicester the title. Brazil versus Colombia, 2014 World Cup quarterfinal. By the time this match hit the second half, it felt less like a quarterfinal and more like a demolition derby, and Neymar was in the driver's seat until he wasn't. Brazil came in hyped and emotional, fueled by the home crowd and the weight of a nation's expectations. Colombia, ready to scrap for every inch, and they set the tone immediately. Get physical, get rough, don't let Brazil breathe. The fouls piled up fast, hard challenges, sneaky elbows, constant niggles. But referee Carlos Velasco Carvalho, he seemed determined to let it all flow even when it was clear this wasn't flowing, it was boiling. And then came the moment everyone remembers, Juan Camilo Zúñiga flying into Neymar's back with a reckless knee, fracturing a vertebra and ending Neymar's World Cup right there. The stadium fell silent, the cameras cut to Neymar being stretchered off, tears in his eyes, a nation stunned. Meanwhile, back on the pitch, total chaos. James Rodriguez was kicked into oblivion almost every time he touched the ball. Colombia racked up 31 fouls, yes 31, the most by any team in that entire tournament. Brazil dished out plenty of their own rough stuff too. but somehow only 4 yellow cards were shown across the whole brutal 90 minutes. In the end, Brazil won 2-1 thanks to goals from Thiago Silva and David Luiz. But the real story was Neymar's injury, the hit that knocked out Brazil's star and arguably wrecked their entire World Cup campaign. Italy versus Uruguay, 2014 World Cup. If there's one image that defined this match, it's Luis Suarez's teeth sinking into Giorgio Chiellini's shoulder. These two met in Natal with everything on the line, the final group match, knockout hopes dangling by a thread. The game itself was cagey and tense, fouls flying everywhere, players wrestling for every loose ball. Then came the moment, 79th minute, Suarez jostling with Chiellini inside the box, and suddenly Suarez lunged forward and bit him on live television at a World Cup. Chiellini jumped up in fury, pulling down his shirt to show the bite mark, while Suarez casually rubbed his own teeth as if he was the victim. The referee? Oblivious. No card, no VAR back then. Play on. Uruguay scored minutes later to knock Italy out, but all anyone could talk about was Suarez's bite, his third bite in his professional career. FIFA later handed him a 9-match international ban and a 4-month suspension from all football activity. Leeds United versus Chelsea, 1970 FA Cup final replay. By 1970, these two already had reputations, not just as good footballing sides, but as teams that could rough you up and smile while doing it. So when they met at Old Trafford for this FA Cup final replay, fans weren't expecting beauty, they were expecting bruises. And that's exactly what they got. Early on, Chelsea's Ron Chopper Harris went full lumberjack on Eddie Gray's legs and set the tone for the night. Jack Charlton wasn't far behind, tangling with Peter Osgood every chance he got, while Norman Hunter looked like he was auditioning for a wrestling career. Even Chelsea's keeper, Peter Bonetti, took a pounding, getting flattened so badly that he limped through most of the game, grimacing after every goal kick. The referee, Eric Jennings, basically watched it all unfold with the world's most patient expression. No red cards, no dismissals, just an unspoken agreement that tonight was going to hurt. Chelsea pulled out a 2-1 win in extra time, David Webb scoring the decider, but honestly, nobody walked off that pitch unscathed. Marseille versus PSG 2020. Even before kickoff, everyone could feel the tension humming through this one. Le Classique is never friendly, but that night in September 2020, the bad blood was practically pouring out of the tunnel. It started chippy right away, sharp elbows, sly fouls, endless trash talk. Alvaro Gonzalez and Neymar yowing at each other from minute 1, and it only got nastier with every whistle. By the second half, things had completely unraveled. Late tackles turned into scuffles, pushing became shoving, became full-on shouts in the face. Every dead ball was a mini confrontation. Then, in stoppage time, it properly kicked off. A full-on mass brawl right in the middle of the pitch. Players piled in, arms swinging, tempers exploding. The referee finally lost patience and, in the blink of an eye, flashed 5 red cards. Neymar, Kurzawa, Paredes for PSG, Benedetto and Amavi for Marseille. And Neymar? As he left the pitch, he told the 4th official he'd punched Alvaro because of racist abuse, sparking days of headlines and investigations. Marseille won 1-0 thanks to an early Florian Thauvin goal, but nobody cared about the score. Chile versus Brazil, the Condor scandal. This one had all the ingredients of a classic football meltdown, but nobody saw this kind of chaos coming. Maracanã Stadium, September 3rd, 1989. Brazil led 1-0 late in the second half when suddenly, Chile's goalkeeper, Roberto El Condor Rojas, hit the ground, clutching his head like he'd just been struck by lightning. A flare had been thrown from the stands, but wait, the replay showed it never even touched him. The Chilean players didn't wait for confirmation. They stormed off the pitch, waving their arms, demanding the match be abandoned. The whole scene was pure drama, and Chile's plan was working perfectly for about 24 hours. Then investigators took a closer look, and wow, did things unravel quickly. Turns out Rojas had pulled off one of football's most ridiculous cheats. He'd hidden a razor blade in his glove and used it to slice his own head open while lying on the ground. The idea? If Chile could claim crowd violence, maybe FIFA would nullify the match and give them another shot at qualifying for the World Cup. Instead, FIFA hit them with one of the harshest punishments ever. Rojas was banned for life. The ban lifted only 12 years later. Chile were disqualified and several team officials got long suspensions. And that's it. Now, to you, Was there a violent showdown you think edged out all of these and deserves a spot on this list? Tell us in the comments. We want to hear which match you think should top them all. Make sure to also leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos like this one.